By the late 5th century, the Western Roman Empire had collapsed, leaving a massive power vacuum across Italy. Warlords carved up the peninsula, replacing central imperial authority with fractured regional violence. The question for the surviving Roman Senate was whether the civilization could be repaired, and whether a leader from the outside could be the one to do it. Theodoric was born into this landscape, but his journey into the Roman world began as an 8-year-old royal hostage. He was sent to the Eastern Roman court of Constantinople as a human guarantee that his father, the Ostrogothic king, would comply with imperial treaties. That captivity became a 10-year immersion in paideia, the rigorous traditional Roman education. Under the watchful eye of Emperor Leo I, the young Goth was instructed in arithmetic, imperial administrative norms, and Greco-Roman cultural values. The Eastern Empire intended to mold a compliant client king. Instead, they educated a leader who mastered the administrative machinery of an emperor while retaining the martial identity of a Gothic warrior. In 488, the Eastern Roman Emperor Zeno faced an insurrection from Odoacer, the warlord currently ruling Italy. Zeno directed the now-adult Theodoric and his Ostrogothic army westward, tasking him with overthrowing Odoacer and returning the peninsula to imperial alignment. The invasion stalled at the heavy fortifications of Ravenna. A grueling 3-year siege starved both sides of resources, eventually forcing Theodoric and Odoacer to negotiate a treaty to share power over Italy. To celebrate the agreement, the two kings met at a banquet of peace on March 15, 493. During the meal, Theodoric drew his sword and personally killed Odoacer, cutting the man in half from his collarbone to his thigh. The methodical slaughter of Odoacer's kin cleared the path for absolute sovereignty. With the field ended of rivals, the warrior king turned his attention from conquest to the daunting task of governing the state. To govern Italy, Theodoric implemented a philosophy known as civilitas. He recognized that the Ostrogothic minority lacked the numbers to absorb the Roman population, and that total cultural assimilation would strip his warriors of their military identity. He maintained two distinct legal spheres. Roman subjects remained under traditional civil law. The Gothic military lived under separate customary laws. To settle 40,000 warriors, Theodoric concentrated them in northern hubs, maintaining a military presence without stripping wealth from the southern Roman elite. He reinforced this balance through visual propaganda. On artifacts like the Senegalia medallion, Theodoric is depicted in Roman armor, holding a figure of victory, but notably retains his Gothic hair and mustache. By maintaining the Senate's prestige and the aristocracy's wealth, Theodoric presented his reign as a functional restoration of the Roman res publica, rather than a barbarian occupation. This heavy stonework belongs to the ancient Roman aqueducts, which Theodoric restored as part of a massive public works program. He repaired the walls of Rome, refurbished the Theater of Pompey, and engaged in massive infrastructure restoration unseen in the West for over a century. This is the Basilica of Sant Apollinare Nuovo, distinguished by its cylindrical bell tower. Theodoric constructed it as the crown jewel of his capital in Ravenna, locating it next to his palace, modeled on the imperial courts of Constantinople. This ceiling mosaic in Ravenna's Arian baptistery depicts a youthful Christ, and it highlights a major tension of Theodoric's reign. He was an Arian Christian, ruling over a vast Trinitarian, or Catholic, majority, who considered his faith a heresy. He managed this divide by acting as a neutral arbiter. When a papal election split Rome, he backed the senior candidate. When a mob burned synagogues, he forced them to rebuild, enforcing the law regardless of faith. Theodoric positioned himself inter duas potestates, between the powers of the papacy and the Eastern Empire. By keeping them at theological odds, he ensured the Pope relied on an Arian king for protection rather than the emperor, securing decades of peace. In his final years, the external borders protecting Italy began to buckle. The Franks expanded their territory in Gaul, and the new Vandal king in North Africa betrayed their alliance, massacring a retinue of 5,000 Goths belonging to Theodoric's sister. Pressure mounted from the east as well. The ascension of the pro-Catholic Emperor Justin I in Constantinople signaled a new wave of persecution against Arianism. Theodoric grew suspicious that the Catholic senators in Italy were operating as a fifth column, secretly coordinating with the emperor to end Gothic rule. In 523, amid rumors of treasonous correspondence with Constantinople, Theodoric arrested his most brilliant Roman minister, the philosopher Boethius. The following year, Boethius and his father-in-law were executed. The executions destroyed the bridge of trust between the Gothic court and the Italian aristocracy. The Senate's view of Theodoric shifted, and his image as an enlightened restorer was replaced by that of a tyrant. This monolithic structure is the mausoleum of Theodoric. He would never launch his planned war against the Vandals. On August 30, 526, while preparing for the expedition, he died of dysentery. These are the eyes of the Eastern Emperor Justinian. Following Theodoric's death, Italy fractured under the regency of his daughter. The resulting chaos invited Justinian's armies into the peninsula, sparking the devastating Gothic wars that would eventually leave Rome in ruins. His reign leaves a complex historiographical debate. Scholars continue to argue over his identity. Was he a Germanic king merely mimicking Roman forms, or was he a legitimate restorer of the Western Roman Empire? The Byzantine victors subjected his reign to a damnatio memoriae, branding him a usurper to justify their reconquest. Yet in Germanic regions, his memory evolved into the mythic figure Dietrich von Bern, a hero of physical prowess celebrated throughout medieval legend. Theodoric's three-decade reign demonstrated that Gothic military strength and Roman administrative tradition could coexist. For a brief period, his kingdom held the fracturing West together, using the energy of the Goths to sustain the systems of Rome.